issue as far as decision making, the slow pace of decision making. You talked about the railways, for instance, that they have enough money, they've been allocated enough money, but the capacity to spend is a problem. A conversation that I had with Mr. Nitin Gadkari just day before yesterday, and he said exactly the same thing. He said the need of the hour is administrative reforms, because a file comes back to the minister at least 8 or 9 times to get some sort of an approval. It takes 160 approvals, according to him, to get anything moving. Is that going to be part of the agenda that the government is looking at?
It obviously is, and it's helping. It obviously is, and it's helping. For instance, I have used the situation created by the fall in oil prices to increase the cess to 8 rupees. And therefore 8 rupees actually translates into a huge amount of corpus. Enough to take care of rural roads and national highways across the year. Now this is also for larger public good. I've made additional funds available to the railways. I've made tax-free bonds available to the railways. The LIC, I've got them to place 1,50,000 crores, which is a monumental amount for the Indian Railways, for a 30-year loan to the railways. So highways, ports, railways, airports, rural roads. In fact, as we speak in the month of August today, more than 50% of the amount this year earmarked for rural roads is getting spent. So it's fast expenditure. So I don't think the decision making is so slow, but the kind of expense which we have, if we can cut short processes while maintaining fairness. For instance, one decision that we've taken, that 400 railway stations in India are going to be now developed by private sector through the Swiss Challenge bidding system. Now, if you can start that process, because that bidding process itself is a time-consuming process, then the kind of resource it'll completely generate, I think, will be higher. So I don't think Mr. Gadkari can really have the complaint, because I must say to his credit, because he's actually succeeded in pushing the highways sector quite fast. But yet
he's raising it as a complaint.
But let me give you another figure. I saw Suresh Prabhu's statement in the newspaper today that there is a much faster growth rate in the railway expenditure. The planned capital expenditure of the government in the first quarter, this year there is an increase of almost 37-38%. So it's not that decision making is slower. Now, if you can grow 37-38% faster in terms of spending that money in 1 year, which actually means there is activity going on the ground.
I want to address some of the other issues that you talked about. You said many in Parliament see virtues of regulation. You also then followed up by saying that most other managers of the economy, regrettably, are not held accountable for the actions that they take while managing the economy. Do you believe that we're still in an era of over-regulation, and do you believe that there is a need to make regulators more accountable?
I didn't have any particular agency in mind.
But I wasn't only talking about the Reserve Bank of India.
No, I'm not. People must realize that every order we pass, every step we take is going to have a larger impact on the lives of the common people. And therefore, governments are accountable. And other segments which don't have the kind of accountability by a government has. Most other segments can't be grilled by you the way you are grilling me.
Hardly grilling.
And most are not accountable to the people or to the media or to the parliament. And I think Indian politicians and governments are very condemned, but at the end of the day, they are the only accountable section amongst the people.
Has there now been agreement as far as the Monetary Policy Committee framework is concerned?
I can tell you, I think the governor has already indicated that the details will be disclosed only in the due course. Parliament has a first right to know. But for the last few months, in terms of what eventually is to be done, the Reserve Bank and the government are on the same page.
Okay. Your views on the currency and your view on competitiveness.
I have always gone in for a relatively more rational middle path, which is the currency must find its own value. And therefore, to keep a currency high or low through artificial methods is beyond a point an unsustainable proposition. You can do it in short term. Of course, some people do feel, I saw a recent statement from one of the political activists commenting for one day that the currency did go down. But at the end of the day, you have to make the economy competitive. Currency is one part of it. Interest rates are another part of it. Your wage bills are another part of it. Your quality is yet another part. Service, your trade facilitation is an important part of it. Your taxes. You can't have an economy with very high taxes and say we are not competitive. Therefore, when you look at competitiveness, it's not only one aspect. I think the discourse in India has to address each one of these areas.
What about the fiscal position, sir? At this point in time, we're in a comfortable fiscal deficit situation. You can do 3.6 if you want to, but you don't wish to do 3.6 because you want to spend more.
Shereen, this is not a year where we must target. I don't think in terms of fiscal prudence or fiscal discipline there is any adversity. We ended last year at almost 4%.
Yeah.
And bringing down 4 to 3.9 is extremely easy. I can go down further, but I am not in a race for just getting a few extra marks because it became 3.6.
Sure.
This is a stage where you need the economy to grow. You need activity to grow. You need public investment to grow. In more difficult times, the government has to lead and then create an environment where the private sector follows. And therefore, it's not A versus B. And the need for me, therefore, to increase public spending. So when it came to 42% being given to the states, we willingly did so. When it came for spending more in infrastructure areas, we are willingly going to do so. Of course, prudence demands that you can't get into the kind of populism which some governments in the state and some governments in the past have gone, well, let me come up and say, I'll waive all loans and I will do all this. That's not the kind of prudence you are looking for.
As we go forward, sir, one, because of a decision that has to be taken as far as the one rank, one pension issue is concerned, which the stalemate continues there. What kind of fiscal burden would something like that realistically put on the exchequer? The Reserve Bank has also asked for more as far as its own staff is concerned. Do you see fiscal pressures building on the government?
You're going to have, in a few weeks from now, the 7th Pay Commission, which will be create a lot of fiscal pressure. Every segment is going to follow. I don't want to say anything because the concerned people are in dialogue on the one rank, one pension issue. But honestly and truly, can you have a system where you have one segment where pensions are revised every year? Does it happen anywhere else in the world? And then if you do it in one segment, you will have a demonstrative effect on other segments. And then we can forget about fiscal deficits and fiscal prudence. We'd probably, what happened last Monday will probably happen once every month if we discard all fiscal norms. And therefore, you have to have a more disciplined economy. According to me, OROP, since you've raised the issue, we are absolutely committed to implementing it. The only issue is, what is the arithmetical translation of the phrase, OROP? Different people interpret it different ways. And therefore, once that little gap which is left is...
Is it a little gap, sir, or is it a big gap? I mean, we've been having this conversation now for a while.
I understand over the last few days, the gap has narrowed down significantly.
And do you believe a decision is imminent?
You see, we are committed to it. The principle which implements OROP, we are committed to it, but it has to be based on some principles.
But in terms of executive action, the specific priorities
that you will focus on. Let's not be gloomy about legislation. Eventually, but for a constitution amendment, most of the legislations we've got through, and I'm sure whatever is planned, there are parliamentary ways of getting through with them. I think it's extremely important that this expenditure on infrastructure and irrigation over the next 1 or 2 years has to be stepped up even more. If you look at the bank balance sheets and you identify the sectors responsible for the NPAs, you have steel, you have power, you have discoms, and you have the highways. Now the highways have started moving. The Reserve Bank has started seriously addressing the issue of the discoms now. And I hope some of those states concerned will have to improve their tariffs a little bit in order to be able to clean up their balance sheets. And that leaves you steel. We are actively watching almost daily. And therefore, we've twice increased the import duties, which is not exactly the ideal thing to be do. But when you find a lot of dumping taking place from China, you have to make those imports costlier. And then there are other powers which governments have, which we are seriously looking at.
So if I could ask you to end our conversation with the one big idea that you're focusing on in the short term, in the immediate term, to take on what the opportunity the slowdown in China presents for us. What can we expect both on the policy front, in terms of immediate action perhaps, to benefit from the opportunity?
I think the core area is manufacturing. That's related to all these factors that I mentioned. And therefore it is that one area which includes infrastructural spending, which includes credit growth, which includes cost of capital, which includes looking at stressed sectors on account of both external and internal factors. And I think it is that area we can bring up a significant growth. The numbers are achievable.
My final question to you, sir, because we continue to talk about how politics will dictate the pace of reforms and the pace of change in the country. How crucial will the Bihar election verdict be on the kind of reforms that this government would like to take forward?
You see, it will be important. It will be important for more than one reason, because every state assembly election will help us in the creeping acquisition of the Rajya Sabha. And therefore, in this whole battle between growth and obstruction, if growth has to succeed, I think every state election will be important.
Thank you very much for patiently answering all of our questions and joining us here this evening. Thank you, sir.